September 1939, the German foe begins its ruthless march of conquest and sets the stage for World War II.
Welcome to Temple Isaiah, the Jewish Community Center of Palm Springs, and through the Mensch Foundation, we're very grateful for Stephen Geiger bringing Silvia Foti here all the way from Chicago.
Happy to be here.
Oh, happy to have you. So, the book that she wrote, The Nazi's Granddaughter, which is a really compelling book, and I was watching some of her interviews that she's done on various media outlets, and I was just, as I told her before, very, very intrigued about what it's like to grow up with one narrative about your family and find out it's completely different. Completely different. And so just a bit of a background. Silvia Foti was raised on reverent stories about her hero grandfather, a martyr for Lithuanian independence, and an unblemished patriot. But in 2000, she traveled to Lithuania for a ceremony honoring her grandfather. She heard a very different story, one that she didn't know even existed. She heard a rumor that her grandfather had been, quote, a Jew killer, unquote. And the idea that she went there to bury, at her parents' and her grandparents', her mother, grandmother's request, to bury the remains in Lithuania, only to find out that this hero that she knew, that she had heard fond stories about, turned out to be a Nazi collaborator, and worse. And part of her journey was finding out, and as a journalist, and one of the things that journalists do is always try to find the truth, no matter where the truth takes you. And sometimes that's down roads you don't want to go, but I commend you in not giving up that search. And so tonight she's going to talk about that story of how her ancestor that she thought was this Lithuanian hero turned out to be something much, much darker. And the first question that I wanted to ask you, and then Stephen will join in as well, and we have some things for you later on from the Mensch Foundation, is this. You had wrote about that your mother asked you to write this book about your grandfather, about this amazing hero that he was, and a hero, and in Lithuanian culture he was a hero. And your mother dies, your grandmother's still alive for a few more months, but then she says something really interesting to you. She says, let history just sleep. Don't mess around with it. Don't bother it. I'd like to start from there about what was it like to get that message from your grandmother, and then your grandmother dies, and you're left with this mystery.
I took very seriously the promise I gave to my mom on her deathbed to write this book about her famous father. And all I knew was that he was a wonderful hero from Lithuania who fought so bravely against the communists. So 5 months later, when I went to visit my grandmother on her deathbed, and of course it was very difficult for her to have lost her daughter, very difficult for me to have lost my mother. And I come to her bedside and she says, Sylvia, how is the book? And I said, it's fine, I'm gonna get it done. I'm not gonna let it go the way Mom did. And I thought I was giving her words of comfort. And I said, I'm young. At the time I was 38. And I said, I'm not gonna let it go the way Mom did. And that's when she says, don't write the book. Just let history lie. There's no need to dig around. And I was very confused when she said that because it made absolutely no sense to me. I still did not know what I learned later. And at the time, I took it as maybe she just wanted to give me a pass from this rather insane deathbed promise that I made to my mom, and she knew how much it stressed my mother out in trying to write this book. So I thought she was just trying to make my life easier. I could tell she didn't like my answer, but I didn't know why, and she rolled over and faced the wall and had given me her back. And that was sort of the end of the conversation, and that was almost the last time I had spoken to her.
We welcome Stephen Geiger from the Mensch Foundation. Stephen, you have some questions.
First, I want to say thank you to Rabbi Rosenberg. I'm glad you're my partner in interviewing Silvia, and I'm glad to be in Temple Isaiah, which I've been attending for off and on 50 plus years. Silvia, it's a very, very compelling story that you wrote the book about. It took a lot of courage, I think, family-wise, to write such a book. And I commend you for it. And this is why we're going to, after our program here, during our program, honor you with the Mensch Award. Because if anybody is a Mensch, you are a Mensch. Rabbi?
You find something that your grandfather wrote in 1933. The translation is, "Raise your head, Lithuania." Talk about that.
When I first found out about my grandfather, I didn't believe it, and I went into denial. I was told by everybody in the Lithuanian community in Chicago that it was just communist propaganda. And so it took me a long time to decide to really look into it, and mostly it was because I was a journalist. And I knew as a journalist that I couldn't just ignore this rumor, like somehow I'm gonna have to address it. But my fantasy was that I was gonna exonerate him. I was gonna look into it and completely clear his name once and for all. So that was my motivation in going into looking into the Nazi era. My mom had 3 bookshelves of material on her father before she died that she had collected. And in those first 10 years, I had gone through almost everything that she had collected. And most of it had to do with what I called his heroic side and how he fought so bravely against the communists. And, you know, Lithuania was overtaken by the communists 1940 to 41. Then the Nazis 41 to 44. Then again the communists 44 to 90. So 98% of my mom's material had to do with the Soviets. And there was almost nothing in there about the Nazis. So I was scouring through everything again, and I came across this booklet, and the title is Raise Your Head, Lithuanian, Pakelk Galvą Lietuvių. Jonas Noreika is the author. He wrote it in 1933, and the booklet essentially talked for a boycott of anything made by Jews in Lithuania. And so he called the Jews foreigners. So when I finished reading this, and it was very difficult for me to read this, I wanted to burn the book. As his granddaughter, I wanted to hide the evidence because I knew how damaging it was. But of course, as the journalist, I knew I had to keep it. So, you know, I basically had a private conversation with my grandfather, and I said, this is not going to make it easy for me to exonerate you. This is not going to help. And my only saving grace was he did not call for the killing of Jews. So I still had a little sliver of hope that he was not involved in the Holocaust. And, you know, I was telling myself he was a product of the times. Anti-Semitism was very prevalent in all of Europe, not just Lithuania. And so he wrote it as he had just joined the army. And so that was kind of my thinking. I still had a tiny bit of hope that I could still save his reputation.
We'll be back in a few minutes.
Through the Mensch Foundation, we're very grateful for Stephen Geiger bringing Silvia Foti here. In 1941, you find another writing, something very chilling. Talk about that.
It starts Šiauliai City and County Governor, August 22nd, 1941, number 962. To all chiefs of principalities of the Šiauliai County and burgomasters of secondary towns, copy for police precinct chiefs. By decree of Cholet, District Commissioner, all citizens of Jewish ethnicity, including half-Jews, must be removed from all principalities and towns of the county and settled in one district, the ghetto. All Jewish property must be preserved and accounted for by municipalities. In accordance with this decree, 1, Jews of all principalities, secondary towns, and townships must be moved to the town of Geiger in the period of the 25th to the 29th of this month. Requisites for resettlement will be provided by respective municipalities. 2, lists of abandoned Jewish property must be delivered to me in 2 copies by August 29th. Resettled Jews can take the most necessary household items and clothes and up to 200 Reichsmarks in cash for each Jewish family. 3, in Geiger, all Jews will be settled in a separate district, which has to be fenced off by August 30th. Fencing off the ghetto district will be taken care of by the Geiger municipality. Every day, district Jews in the ghetto will be conveyed to work and back to the ghetto by guards. 4, non-Jewish citizens of the district appointed for the Jews are allowed to choose other locations in the county. If any of those non-Jews who are resettled have to abandon their real estate, they are allowed to choose real estate of corresponding value abandoned by the Jews in Geiger or other townships. 5, chiefs and burgomasters are obliged to inform me on the execution of this decree by the 29th of this month, including information on what has been accomplished and how many Jews have been resettled. The burgomaster of Geiger must inform me how many Jews have been resettled to Geiger. Jonas Nareka, signature, City and County Governor.
So now you read this. This is your grandfather, who you have this amazing narrative, this great mythos about to a certain extent, and bam, there it is. What goes through your mind?
I did my research, and I learned that within 6 weeks, more than 2,000 Jews of that whole area had been slaughtered in Geiger. And the date chosen was Yom Kippur on top of it. So at that point, you know, I became angry. This is the document that really made me decide, I don't care what I'm going to find out, I'm going to get to the bottom of this.
You actively then start talking to people in Lithuania about maybe taking a second look at your grandfather. Maybe his hands weren't so clean. And you got a tremendous amount of pushback. Here you are talking about your grandfather who has committed these crimes. You go to the agency that keeps track of all of this. Talk about what happens then when you go and you speak to official Lithuanians and the reaction.
The Genocide Center in Lithuania is the arbiter of history in Lithuania, and it has like 100 historians paid by the state to investigate what happened, mostly during World War II. And what they mostly do, though, is concentrate on the Soviet atrocities against the Lithuanians, and not as much attention has been given to the Nazi atrocities against the Jews. I had hired a Holocaust guide to take me on a tour of where perhaps my grandfather played a role in killing Jews. And so this Simon, who was the head of the Sugihara house in Lithuania in Kaunas, agreed to do this. So the reason I'm leading up to this is because it was Simon's idea that I interview the director of the Genocide Center. So now I'm sitting in her office, and we finally get to this document, this 1941 document, August 22nd, and I asked her, how could he be considered a hero if he wrote that document on August 22nd, 1941, sending all the Jews and half-Jews in his region in Geiger, you know, in the ghetto, and he asked for that new ghetto to be created in Geiger. And her answer really astounded me, and she said, well, it's true that they were all killed, but I think that he might not have known what was going to happen to them. And of course, we don't know what was in his heart when he signed that document. you know. And so it was like she was falling all over herself to make excuse after excuse over him. And my background at that point had been in journalism, and I considered this a primary source document with his signature and with devastating consequences. And so I really felt like when I was talking to her, like, I'm not in Kansas anymore. Like, I really felt like I was somewhere else. And her answer, though, is very indicative of just what Lithuanians do to make excuses. He didn't know what a ghetto was. He thought he was saving Jews by putting them in a ghetto. So it's like they're putting in all kinds of words and ideas and images of what could be in this document, except what was actually written in the document and what happened.
We see this a lot in a lot of countries still, where a refusal to take responsibility
That's right.
for the Holocaust. And Silvia's example is so spot on as to, you know, you go to other countries where it's the same thing, where, well, they really didn't know. They thought they were going to be going here. They thought we thought we'd be, you know, taking care of the Jewish people. And is this more the rule than the exception, or the exception than the rule?
It's very complicated. Most of the people that had this stereotype belief are no longer alive. But when they were alive, they taught it to their children. And those children taught it to their children. Since the communist wall fell, things opened up more. But even now, this educational system, we have schools in Hungary, and I take people there to discuss Holocaust survivors to schools. It's very difficult to come to terms with the fact that your grandparents might have been murderers. It's very difficult to come to terms with that. Proper education has not gone to the level, even in our country. We don't even have to go far. We have problems in America. Look at Nazis marching in Charlottesville. Look at synagogues being burnt in Pittsburgh. Look at Texas. Okay, that Texas was somebody who came from an Islamic country. But nevertheless, I think this is a problem of humanity that has not been really educated. We have 12 states, U.S. states, who mandate Holocaust education. What about the other 38 states? And teaching about the Holocaust is not just about the Holocaust. You're trying to prevent racism and hatred in a new generation of people and hating other people, Asians, whatever. And it's a vehicle for teaching young people to be tolerant and to judge people as they go along in their life by their character, just like Martin Luther King said.
We're going to take a short break, and don't forget to come back. Never forget.
You write the book, and you've had a huge reception from the Jewish community, which is, you know, the Jewish communities around the world really have responded to you, because we're very grateful for you telling a story that is very painful but needs to be told. And what you did is a true mitzvah. It's something that's very good that you've been able at personal expense be able to delve into the truth, because you've done something now that generations from now on will look back and they will know the truth. And in that way, you've done something that is just tremendous, and we owe you a great debt of gratitude. Thank you.
I really thought the Jews would be upset, you know, because I'm the granddaughter of a perpetrator, and I thought it would be a turnoff for them. So I'm really surprised at the level of response I've been receiving, and just the warmth and the heart and the love that I've been receiving from the Jewish community. It has been amazing.
You have a long list of rabbis now that you know.
Yes, and I'm happy to.
In Yad Vashem, they give awards for being righteous Christians, people who saved Jews during the war. In a sense, intellectually, you are a righteous Christian for saving people from thinking the wrong thing. And awarding you today with the Mensch Award gives me great gratification, because the first time we awarded somebody, it was in this synagogue in 2005, when the only Holocaust survivor in Congress, U.S. Congress, was Tom Lantos, my fellow Hungarian Jew, and his wife Annette. And they received the Mensch Award here in 2005. They were saved by Raoul Wallenberg in Hungary. And we had an exhibition of Wallenberg here, and at the same time we give him the Mensch Award. So I'm very gratified to have this opportunity. 4 presidents, 2 U.S. presidents, 1 Israeli president, 1 Hungarian president has received this award. George H.W. Bush, Gerald R. Ford, Itzhak Navon in Israel, and Arpad Gurns in Hungary. The chief rabbi of Israel received this award. Zubin Maitan has received this award. Eva Marie Saint, for her part in Exodus, received the award. And about 35 others. This is the first time I'm giving the award to the granddaughter of a Nazi. And I'm giving it to you because you are the best of humanity, and you exemplify the best in all of us. And you are a mensch for all seasons, as it says here. And I'm honored that you are here today and left the cold of Chicago to suffer in 86 degrees here. I'm sure that's miserable. Thank you, Silvia.
Thank you.
As we conclude tonight, I want to thank Robert Fay and Mr. Stephen Geiger for putting this on tonight, and all of you for coming. This has been a really wonderful evening. We've learned a lot, and we've truly learned about what it means to have courage to be true to the truth. So I want to thank you for being here tonight, and thank you for educating us and showing, please, and showing the amount of courage and love for the truth. And we owe you a great debt of gratitude.